What's up, music fans of the internet? I'm Derek.
And I am Kevin.
And together we're last week's album, The Only Reviews, with two different views. And this week we're talking about Kept by the band Stolen Jars. And we're asking the big question, is the Stolen Jars sophomore album, Kept, worth keeping in your rotation of tunes? Before we go any further, we're going to start things off like we always do, drinking a beer. Cheers, Kevin, everyone at home.
Cheers, Derek, and everyone at home. Forgot to open mine, but cheers.
Opening certainly helps drinking. Some background on Stolen Jars. This was initially started as a solo project by Cody Fitzgerald in 2009, and he was subsequently joined by Molly Grund, and they released their self-titled debut back in 2011. They now have a band that works with them. We're not sure if it was on this album or just in touring for playing live shows, but they have a band component to it too. But we're going to keep this focus on Cody and Molly, as they really are kind of the brains behind Stolen Jars. And without further ado, we're going to jump into what it sounds like. Kevin, what did you think?
Derek, I think Kept sounds like Conor Oberst and Givers and Vampire Weekend and a little bit of Walk the Moon. What do you think, Derek?
I like those references. I think Kept sounds like She and Him and the XX write Dirty Projectors-inspired musical love letters sent via the Postal Service.
Nice.
Snail mail, I think they used to call it. I don't know. So that brings us to key tracks. Kevin, what did you have?
I've got Another November and Wreaths, Rakes. What about you?
Say your second key track 5 times fast. I'm just kidding. I actually have Kept, the title track, and Wheel. Kept is the second track on the album and comes before any of yours, so I'll start us off. This one really features layers of sound at every turn, which is really a common theme for Stolen Jars. Percussion, I thought, right off the bat, really struck me. It ranges from rapping snare drum, hand claps, tapping drumsticks to large tribal drum beat sounds. There's a variety of frolicking, warm electric guitar hooks, layered male-female vocals, and a really nice bridge that featured minimal instrumentation and lone vocals repeating "No, I Will Not Stray," which really ties into the lyrical theme, which I thought described a calming or stabilizing effect Loved One provides. One great example, he says, long tones are what keep us now. There's a chorus inside. Living takes time. So some sage words from some young artists right there, which really kept in my rotation. I should not have fallen into that phrase. Right. Kevin, why don't you please take this away from me?
Sure. I appreciate the wordplay there. It just gets a little confusing. For my first key track, I've got Another November, track number 3. And this one, Molly sort of takes the lead on vocals. It's the first song where she really takes the lead. And the drums get a little more pounding here. The guitar gets a little more fluid and less jittery than the first couple of tracks. And a xylophone synth that comes in later that's really nice. There's a really nice line. She says, "If I am warm, let me warm you." And it's really earnest without being annoying, just sort of a simple truth. And overall, this song is just the sweetest song about a donkey that I think has maybe ever been written. What do you think, Derek?
Kevin, I completely agree. One line from that one that jumped out to me, and I know I remember the nose of a donkey I knew when I was a girl wanting to warm the noses of donkeys. I completely agree with your assessment there. It's a simple song about a girl that just wants to warm donkeys' noses. That's it. Wheel is a song not literally about, one of 4 things on a vehicle, or, one of more than 4 on larger vehicles. This one I thought had a very immense sound that built up quickly. It really starts off with a quiet, nonchalant electric guitar riff, which is joined by a driving bass drum beat that fades in from the distance, and what I thought was pedal steel guitar flourishes throughout, which was really kind of a unique wrinkle that wasn't present earlier. Overall, the vocal melody comes in and it grows in layers, volume and intensity building as the song progresses. overall, I really thought this track presented some of the most intricate layering, which I thought was especially surprising to find this on the closing track, which often features less complicated sounds or songs. So this one I thought was a very nice gem right there at the end of the album. Kevin, why don't you tell us about your last key track?
Sure. This one's about halfway through. It's number 5. It's called Wreaths, Rakes, and I will not say it 3 times fast, but you guys could try it home. It's a little bit more upbeat track out of all of them on the album. Syncopated hand claps, staccato guitar, occasional drum stickery, as I'm calling it. The guitar is really quick and twinkling and creates this sort of natural drone effect, which is really nice. And again, Molly takes the lead here on vocals. I don't know, maybe I just like it better when she sings. But here, as you mentioned on Wheel, Derek, they do a lot of layering effects, this time with her voice, and it's sort of layered over and over each other and creates this really sort of subtle, haunting track. Really nice with Wreaths, Rakes.
Nice. I'm not even going to try to say the name of that track. So instead, let's talk about best lyrics. Kevin, what did you have?
Sure. I've got one from the first track called Waves. And the line goes, "When you came, it had all gone away, been locked up in my head. I gave it different names to go by. And outside, bright lights smoldering, our legs with wood beneath, when I was bound to leave in no time." That's just this extremely poetic line that kind of smacked me in the face right at the start of this album. And you get that throughout the album. Some really nice lyricism here, with not only on this track, but across the album as well. And there's a lot of longing and growing up and wondering and just putting this really, really nice voice. And that's a good example. What did you think, Derek?
Absolutely. You know, I'm taking a lot of similar themes in the best lyric. I'm picking, this one comes from Kept, title track, also one of my key tracks. And they say, "And I know my head is gone, spends days in worried dreams sometimes. But if it seems I'm gone for too long, just know that it's with you in mind." Again, echoing the theme of longing, but done in a very nice poetic way again. And I totally agree, this happened throughout the album. So let's talk a little bit more about the overall album. And asking the big question, is the Still in Jars sophomore effort kept worth keeping in your rotation of tunes? Kevin, why don't you start us off?
Sure. I think on the pro side, the percussion is really one of the highlights of this album, not just drums, but also staccato guitar. It's very sort of rackety, but still very chill throughout the album. The pair have these really soft, vulnerable voices that play together nicely. The drums build really well over the course of the entire album. And as I mentioned before, songwriting is just poetic, dramatic, idiosyncratic, any other words that rhyme with attic. And on the con side, the guitar sometimes toggles just between interesting and annoying. I hate to say that, but it can be a little sort of pingy and just too much sometimes. And a little bit sometimes after a while, the plotting and sort of jittery vibes can be a little bit trying on this album. But is it worth keeping in your rotation? I will give this an overall rating of 3 and say yes. I think it's good for cranking through work with driving beats, maybe wallowing in anguish with its emotional dramatics, or even throwing on like a Sunday afternoon on the porch like I did today.
I wonder if that line was somewhat autobiographic. Thanks for confirming for me. You know, to answer the question first, I completely agree. I think this is definitely worth keeping in your musical rotation. I completely agree with your assessment on the percussion. I thought it was very strong. And we kind of touched on this earlier, but the lyricism, or as I kind of wrote down, the lyrical variety really stood out to me. You know, it's not unusual to see new acts, you know, heavily rely on lighter lyrics, often repeating the same verse multiple times throughout a song. That really didn't happen at all here with Still in Jars. I will give the caveat that it did kind of happen on Wheel, one of my key tracks. He just repeated the first verse twice, but it was done in the growing stages, so I'm allowing it. Very imaginative lyrics, using musical terminology often, as I kind of referred to earlier, kind of the length of notes. I thought that was very cool. The track Red Eyes, referring to red eyes appearing in old photographs, and not like, you know, being possessed by a demon or something. I thought that was cool. Conversely, I didn't think the lyrics necessarily said anything new. Lots of stories of love, love lost, longing, etc., etc. But overall, I thought that showed a great ability to craft sounds large and small. I completely agree with your assessment on the guitar lines. I thought at times there wasn't enough musical variety. Yeah, I think they did a lot, but they were very reliant on a few musical tools or devices. I think that kind of showed through with some of the guitar work. Some of the guitar lines sounded repetitive at times. But that being said, I think that's a small negative, so I'm giving this one a 4 out of 5 overall. So Kevin's 3 out of 5, that's a combined 7 out of 10. So you better keep kept in your musical rotations. Thanks again for joining us at last week's album, The Only Reviews with 2 different views. Don't forget to subscribe. Shout out to the podcast. And until next time, I'm Derek.
And I'm Kevin. Cheers, guys.